The desert was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that soldiers fear more than gunfire. Dust coated their skin, sweat burned their eyes, and every nerve felt stretched to the breaking point. The Navy SEAL team had been deployed for weeks, running on sheer exhaustion and instinct. But tonight, everything had gone wrong. Commander Blake Harlow crouched behind a shattered stone wall, his rifle's scope scanning the moonlit ridgeline. Intelligence had failed them completely. The high-value target wasn't in the compound. Instead, hostile fighters had flooded the valley, sealing every escape route. Machine gun fire pinned them down from above, the sharp crack of bullets echoing off the cliffs, while mortar crept closer with every deafening impact. "We're boxed in, sir," Ramirez whispered beside him, his voice tight with tension, knuckles white on his rifle. Harlow's jaw tightened. He had led men through hell before, from the jungles of South America to the frozen mountains of Afghanistan. But this felt different. This felt like a final stand. They needed air support. Not just any pilot, not just a routine flyby. They needed someone who could fly where no one should survive. He keyed his radio, forcing a calm he didn't feel into his voice. "This is Phantom Actual. Requesting immediate close air support. Danger close. Repeat, danger close." The only answer was a burst of static. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Heavy, endless. The machine gun nest above them opened up again, chipping away at their cover. Then, a new voice cut through the noise. It was soft, steady, almost too calm for a battlefield. "Copy that, Phantom Actual. I'm inbound." Every SEAL in the squad froze. That voice, it didn't sound rushed. It didn't sound aggressive or full of bravado. It just sounded certain. Harlow pressed the transmit button again. "Identify your call sign. Terrain's tight. Cliffs on both sides of the valley. We're tracking heavy anti-air batteries on the ridges. Are you sure about this approach?" A brief pause, then the reply, delivered as quiet as a promise. "Call sign Raven, and I don't miss." The men exchanged uneasy looks in the dark. Someone muttered under their breath. Harlow didn't care who the pilot was, man or woman, veteran or rookie. But something about that cool, unwavering tone made the hair on his arms stand up. This was different. This was someone else entirely. Moments later, the night sky trembled. A jet screamed across the horizon, impossibly low and blindingly fast, slicing through the darkness like a black scalpel. Enemy fire erupted instantly, a web of tracers clawing upward. Rockets tearing through the air, trying to swat the ghost from the sky. But the aircraft didn't retreat. It didn't even flinch. It danced. It rolled, dived, and threaded gaps between mountain peaks that shouldn't exist. Precision strikes slammed into the ridge. Each explosion exact, controlled, devastating. One hit silenced a machine gun nest. The next vaporized a mortar position. There was no wasted fire, no collateral chaos. It was surgical. Harlow raised his radio again, his voice filled with awe. "Raven, that was perfect." The response came back, unchanged, still as calm as a placid lake. "I told you, I don't miss." With Raven clearing their path from above, the SEALs began to move, pushing forward, breaking through the enemy's shattered line. Hope, a dangerous and forgotten feeling, began to return. And then, just as quickly, everything collapsed again. A second wave of enemy fighters poured into the valley from a hidden tunnel system, cutting them off once more. This time, it was worse. The lines blurred. Friendlies and hostiles became tangled in a desperate, close-quarters firefight. Any mistake from the air now would be fatal, hitting their own men. "Raven," Harlow said, his voice strained, the desperation leaking through. "We need one last run. But it's a mess down here, friendlies are compromised. We're practically on top of them. The reply was immediate. Mark your position. I'll handle the rest. Infrared strobes blinked on across the SEALs' helmets, little beacons of life in a storm of death. The enemy, seeing the strobes, intensified their fire, concentrating everything they had on the SEALs' positions. The margin for error vanished. It wasn't just thin, it was gone. The jet dove. Time seemed to slow down. Through the swirling smoke and the chaos of tracer fire, Raven's aircraft became a phantom. Carving up the battlefield with impossible precision, explosions walked right up to the line of friendly strobes. Each strike landed inches from them, never touching them. She flew so low, the SEALs felt the air rip across their helmets. The roar of her engines, a physical force that shook them to their core. Minutes later, a new silence fell. A real silence. The kind earned through survival, paid for in blood and courage. Harlow leaned against the rock, his lungs burning, and exhaled hard. He keyed the radio one last time. Raven, that was impossible. A quiet breath on the other end. A voice that sounded, for the first time, just a little weary. Not impossible, necessary. The line went dead. They never saw her. Not that night. Not ever again. In the debriefs, her flight data was classified above their clearance. Her records were a ghost, but her words stayed with them, etched into their memory. I don't miss. Years later, the survivors of that night would still speak of the pilot they called Raven. Some called her a ghost of the battlefield, others an angel with jet wings. But Harlow knew the truth. When everything failed, when the mission fell apart and death closed in from all sides, it wasn't a roar of thunder that saved them. It was a whisper, a promise from the darkness that made all the difference. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next one.